studio. Here is Chanduko Ligege. With that, it's 6 o'clock Central African time.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. I'm Cholani Chulo Webe. A major development in peace talks in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the United Nations peacekeeping mission, will send its first team to monitor a ceasefire between Congo's government and the AFC or M23 rebel group in the coming days. Qatar's foreign ministry made the announcement after hosting talks in Doha. The team will be deployed to Uvira, the strategic city in eastern Congo that the M23 fighters captured in December during a rapid offensive. Congolese forces and allied militias, however, re-entered Uvira last month, restoring government control after the rebels announced they would withdraw. The United States is hosting separate talks between Congo and Rwanda. Nigerian prosecutors have filed 57 terrorism-related charges against 9 men accused of carrying out a deadly attack on Yelwata community in Nigeria's central Benue state in June 2025 that killed about 150 people. The charges filed at the Federal High Court in Abuja says the defendants helped planning meetings, raised funds, procured weapons and mobilized fighters across several states ahead of the June 13 attack on the deadliest rural assaults in years. Nigerian authorities say they are trying to cooperate with US President Donald Trump, who accuses the country of failing to protect Christians to improve security. The National Commissioner of Correctional Services, Mahoti Tobahale, has revealed that South Africa's inmate population has risen to over 170,000, far exceeding the department's approved bed capacity. He was speaking during a media briefing on the outcomes of the department's festive season security operations. Tobahale says the situation has placed enormous pressure on staffing and security.
During the festive season, the inmate population exceeded 739,000, far surpassing the department's approved capacity of approximately 167 beds. This level of incarceration represents the highest population recorded in recent years and has placed immense pressure on infrastructure, staffing, security management, budget, and it's also compounded by reduced court activity during the festive season.
The Mpumalanga Department of Health, still in South Africa, is urging residents to remain cautious amid a sharp rise in malaria cases in the province. The department registered more than 300 cases last month. Director for Communicable Diseases Mandla Zwane attributes the increase in malaria to the recent floods in the province.
We are saying there is an increase of cases this year compared to last year, because last year, the whole January, we had 69 cases. But if you look now, we have 314 cases, so hence there is some increase of cases. The mostly affected district is Etanzeni, that mostly affected the sub-district, that is local municipalities, which are Nkomazi, city of Mbombela and Bushbuckridge. It's high numbers of those cases are at Nkomazi.
And finally, Pakistan has launched its first nationwide campaign of the year to vaccinate more than 45 million children against polio. For the next week, health workers will be going door to door to inoculate children in the province of Sindh, Punjab, Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The BBC's Anbarasan Itirajan has the story.
Polio is a highly infectious virus which invades the nervous system and can cause total paralysis. It mainly affects children under 5. Pakistan has been making a sustained vaccination drive, recording 31 polio cases last year compared with 74 a year earlier. Thousands of police officers will provide security to the health workers. They have previously been attacked by militants who falsely claim the vaccination program is a Western conspiracy to sterilize Muslims.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headlines, Aiden Makram warns not to overthink World Cup as Proteas jets into India. And Mercedes driver George Russell says his hope for the 2026 Formula One season is finding himself in a title fight. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
All right, and we are together for the next 3 hours, as we said. If you've just woken up with us, thank you for doing just that. A very good morning to you. Coming to you live from our Johannesburg studios in South Africa. My name is Asanda, Beda, and we are Channel Africa. This coming hour, we will be looking at South Africa that has taken a major step in the fight against HIV. The country is enrolling its first group of HIV-negative volunteers in a landmark vaccine trial. And then we go to the United Nations World Food Programme, or WFP. They are warning that escalating conflict in South Sudan's Jonglei state is putting hundreds of thousands of lives at risk, as nearly 60% of the state's 2 million residents are expected to face crisis levels of hunger during the upcoming lean season. So that season is from April to July. And those stories, of course, and more coming up. And do get in touch with us at Channel Africa 1. That is our handle across the various social media platforms. You can literally find us everywhere. We're also live streaming via that handle on YouTube. Also connect with us on channelafrica.co.za, as well as the SABC Plus app. So you've got a lot of options that you can connect with us, and we'd love to hear your views.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week. 60 years of broadcasting Africa to the world. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Ritmos e cultura. Com Jacob Tivani.
E os ouvintes do Ritmos e Cultura, hoje em linha com uma das grandezas da música moçambicana, porque não? Ele que é um dos kings da marrabenta, uma bermuda in the building.
É um prazer enorme estar a fazer parte deste programa. Deixe-me só saudar. Boa tarde a todos os ouvintes que me ouvem neste preciso momento. Meu nome é Uma Bermuda, de Alau Fanelo Estarapo, Gás de Água da Fanhela é Mabiscato. Eu vou saudar de uma maneira diferente. Ah, tita buia, mwanango, tiduma tifika giane. Ah, tita buia, mwanango, tiduma tifika giane. Ani motive lo ababa yena otiva mina haikonama. Ani motive lo anona yena otiva wahimbo watwa. Cá estou eu, irmão, para conversarmos, para falarmos um pouco de tudo. Estou aqui, estou aberto. Eu estou muito feliz porque é a primeira vez que eu falo nesta rádio, falo para os ouvintes, então estou muito feliz.
Ritmos e cultura com Jacob Tivani. Todos os domingos, das 20 às 21 horas.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
New stories about to be part of our Africa Roundup. So this is the segment of the show that we bring you up to date with some news you may have missed. It's a list of stories compiled by our team of researchers, our reporters, and our editors to make sure you get in the know. It also serves as what one can expect to develop in the news space in this new day and maybe the rest of the week. So we start our Africa Roundup today with a Sudan Airways flight from Port Sudan to Khartoum that took off on Sunday, marking the first step in reopening the country's air travel network. The airport had been closed and heavily damaged at the start of the conflict between Sudan's army and the Rapid Support Forces. Officials say the gradual reopening will eventually allow regional and international flights to resume. Naba Mohideen reports from Port Sudan.
Actually, it's really important, and there's a very big significance about the first flight being flying from Port Sudan to Khartoum, the first operational commercial flight that carried out civilians and also officials. It has both symbolic significance and also practical one. Symbolically, it means that life is returning to Khartoum. like the government is normalizing the life in Khartoum, and also it's a very good indicator that the security conditions are improving, because it's reopening of airports and key facilities like airports, that is a very big indicator that security conditions are improved, and also it's a strong message of recovery.
South Africa has taken a major step in the fight against HIV, enrolling its first group of HIV-negative volunteers in a landmark vaccine trial. The Brilliant 011 study, launched at the Desmond Tutu HIV Foundation at Groot Schuur Hospital in Cape Town, is being hailed as a potential turning point in the global effort to end the virus. Professor Glenda Gray, distinguished professor and leading health researcher at Wits University, has more.
This is a first-in-human, first-in-Africa study, and it's what we call an HIV discovery program, where we are trying to induce neutralizing antibodies in people who we vaccinate. So this is a very special combination at a special target of the HIV envelope with an adjuvant that's designed to augment the immune response. And so what we do hope is that we're able to teach the immune system to induce these body neutralizing antibodies, so that we can teach the immune system and understand whether we need to make a next generation vaccine, or whether the vaccine that we have is sufficient, and how we can augment this. So this is the first study. It's 20 participants. If we find that the vaccine has a good immune response, we will then proceed to larger studies and hopefully augment the...
A low-lying bridge at Swinga village. Rendani Ralipaswa reports.
The search teams from Gauteng and Limpopo stopped searching 3 days ago after the recovery of the vehicle. His brother, who traveled from the Netherlands, has spent the past week in Swinga village searching together with his countrymen, close relatives and friends. The Somali community is also distressed.
The rescue team the final search was on 28th of January. But what we can say is that the South African government, the local government and national level, they do their best to search our brother. But we still worry about we didn't find our brother. So we hope that one day we'll find him. And us as a community and family, we are busy searching. Even right now, some of our brothers are there in the river, searching our brother.
Designers at Nairobi Fashion Week are focusing on this year's theme, which is Decarbonize. The theme highlights the environmental impact of Kenya's large second-hand clothing industry, which has contributed to mounting piles of textile waste at city dump sites. David Doyle reports.
On the runway, designer John Koveke showcased a collection made from 80% upcycled materials.
So I bought a lot of these fabrics that you saw in the collection, all from the second-hand market, local markets, the Gikomba. So I used those ones and created pieces that can still they look like fresh.
He argues that so-called circular design can deliver beauty while reducing fashion's environmental footprint. Greenpeace Africa's Helen Kahaso-Dina said the second-hand clothing sector does support a large population of traders.
I think what we are calling really and we are pushing really is for the global north to stop dumping, and for the local government to ensure that there is stringent measures at the port of entry, where we are saying if anything is of low quality, then we will not accept.
And that's how we come to the end of today's Africa Roundup. We'll do this again tomorrow. It comes after the 6 a.m. news here on Rise and Shine. Still to come, though, we delve deeper into what's happening in the East African region of our continent. We'll get into conversation there. Joining us on Tuesdays for this chat is Dennis Peru, and he is team leader at Association of Grassroots Journalists Kenya, and he's a journalist as well.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain.
And this time, imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Let's get the African perspective now on what's happening in the East African region of our continent. On Tuesdays, we're joined by Dennis Beru for this chat. He's journalist and team leader at Association of Grassroots Journalists Kenya, and he helps us to reflect on these stories. Dennis, good morning. How are you on this Tuesday?
Good morning, Asanda. I'm doing well. I know you are pretty well in Joburg.
Yes, sir, we are. Thank you very much. On today's East Africa Roundup, we start with your country, actually, Kenya, but involving an international story there involving Russia and the Ukraine. So the family of a Kenyan man who was killed while fighting in Russia, or for Russia, rather, in the Ukraine, is seeking answers and government support to bring his body home. How did he land up there in the first place?
Thank you so much, Asanda. Of course, this is Clinton Nyapara Mogesa, a 29-year-old who initially left Kenya for a job in Qatar in 2024, but later told his relatives that he was traveling to Russia. And on Saturday, Ukrainian authorities reported that he had died in a so-called meat assault, one involving high casualty numbers in Donetsk, the eastern part of Ukraine, after being recruited in Qatar. They said that Russian did not even evacuate his body and was carrying the passport of two other Kenyans. And Asanda, his death comes amid growing concerns about Kenyan being recruited to fight in the war in Ukraine. And the Mogesa's cousin, said they did not believe it will. When they were informed of his death, he said the news first relayed to Mogesa by a colleague who had a relative in Russia before it was made public. And he told a BBC News Day program that Mogesa had notified them he had moved to Russia from Qatar, where they were in communication during his training for about 3 weeks. However, they did not heard him about. Did not heard from him. And the last time they had a conversation with him was 28th October of 2025. And Asanda, this is just one of the cases that we have had recently, and quite a number of Kenyans who are lured by this agency to go do some work in Russia, but they end up joining the Russian forces, and they are put on the front line. A few days ago, we had a Kenyan who had to fake a madness so that he can escape from the front line in Ukraine, and he has been narrating the story about how so many Kenyans are fighting and are dying in war in Ukraine.
So this is trafficking. It's human trafficking. If Kenyans are sent over there under false pretense, they think they're going there for one thing, and they end up doing another, being killed at that in this war between Russia and the Ukraine. A similar situation happened here in South Africa, where a group of young people were sent over to the Ukraine under the pretense that they're going to be there as missionaries. What is the government then saying of Kenya, and what can be done on the international community front to make sure this does not continue?
Yes, Asanda, this is human trafficking, and Mogesa said, when he was recruited, he was going there to do a different job, but he ended up in a military camp. He was speaking to his parents, and some of the Kenyans who were luckily to escape from Russia, they were narrating the same thing. And remember, last year, the Kenyan Foreign Affairs Minister Musalia Mudavadi said that about 200 Kenyans were known to be fighting in Ukraine, and we have still active recruitment networks in Kenya, but so far we've not seen anything being done by Kenyan government to ensure that at least there is an end to the recruitment. And Ukraine's intelligence assessment estimate that about 1,400 people from that 6 African countries in Africa have been recruited to fight in the front zone in Russia. So it is so sad. We haven't seen anything from the Kenyan government, and we still 2 days ago we had some Kenyan journalists going to the Russian embassy in Kenya to ask more questions, but unluckily they were not able to get this feedback from the Russian embassy in Kenya.
Let's move on to Uganda now. A new study there is showing that ride-hailing platforms have failed to improve job security or formal employment for Uganda's border drivers. I wonder, because borders are very popular within Central and East Africa, if they even needed to be integrated into a formal employment. They were doing fine just on their own. What are your thoughts on that then, them being incorporated into ride-hailing platforms?
Yes, Asanda, we all understand that the border business started in Uganda some years back, and these digital labor platforms like fast food delivery and cab hailing services are having a dramatic impact on people's labor rights and working condition around the world, and the Western countries like UK and the US. Their rise has intensified the process of labor casualization already several decades in making, and under the guise of flexibility. But of course, in Uganda, the growth of digital gig economy is often considered a boon, and across the global south, it has been claimed that the platforms are not only recruiting millions of new jobs, but they are actually helping formalize an informal economy of new jobs. But of course, these accounts about 70% of the total employment low and middle income countries. And Asanda, of course, we've seen quite a number of challenges in Uganda, and that this new research paper claimed that through a study, a motor tax work in Uganda, capitals of Kampala, and the border is a hugely important source of income in Uganda, providing livelihood for estimated 350,000 people in the capital alone. Over the past decades, rides hail platform have descended upon the vast industry, claiming to offer safer, better paid work and a step towards formality. Drawing about, the interview drew about 112 interviewees, 370 driver survey and scans of relevant media. The research reaches a different conclusion. And of course, I've been able to be in Uganda, and I've actually seen, how the border sector works there, and it is really crazy. And of course, these research really tells what is really happening on ground, especially in the city of Kampala.
Okay, let's go to Tanzania now as we talk of ride-hailing platforms and boda-bodas. The e-hailing platform Uber has decided to exit the country of Tanzania. They are citing regulatory challenges and also that the business environment in the country is unviable. What exactly are their complaints, the Uber drivers?
Asanda, this is not the first time, and now officially Uber has exited the Tanzanian market. And remember, some time back, they stopped operating because of strict regulations. And now it is now officially that by the 30th of January 2026, Uber has exited the market for nearly about 10 years into the Tanzanian market. And the company informed the users via an app message that it will no longer be available. The services will no longer be available under express regulator for any inconvenience to both riders and drivers. And remember, the industry observer point to persistent regulatory challenges and intense competition as like factors in the decision. And remember, the Tanzania's Land Transport Regulatory Authority, LATRA, has imposed strict rules on fare controls, commission caps, and the limited Uber ability to use its usual dynamic pricing model, making it difficult to operate profitably. And these now marked by previous disruption, including temporary suspension, as I said, in 2022, after regulatory changes, they resumed in 2023 following the negotiation. However, the competitive landscape, especially from the strong growth of rivals such as Bolt and other regional platforms as a Farasi, and ongoing regulatory pressure. Of course, we have seen Uber business, environment unsuitable, and now they have officially exited the Tanzanian market. It is so sad. Of course, we are going to see job losses, and of course, the drivers will have to go for other services.
Let's go to the Seychelles now. I wish we could go there physically because I need a holiday. But we hardly talk about them in the news. But today we are talking about the Electoral Commission there in the Seychelles. They've struck off two political parties from the voters' roll or from the register following a court ruling. What exactly happened there?
Before the end of this year, they'll be having the parliamentary election, and Electoral Commission of Seychelles has removed the registration of two political parties, that is Lyon Saint-Man and La Force Sociale Démocratique, LSD, after being ordered so by the Supreme Court. And Asanda, this decision follows a court ruling by the Supreme Court Judge Adrai Karunakaran, which upheld a legal challenge that prohibited these political parties from being officially registered. As a result, the commission struck their names off the list of political parties. And remember, even the aspirants who are also vying under these political parties, their names have been struck from the registers of political parties. And the development means now both parties can no longer operate as a registered political entity or participate in election in their current form unless they pursue further legal action or successfully appeal the ruling. And now these highlights the role of a judiciary in supervising electoral regulations and party registration in Seychelles, underscoring, of course, that all political parties must meet legal standards to be recognized and contest for the upcoming election in Seychelles.
All right. As I say, I wish we could be there and go physically and not just discuss the island. I really want a holiday.
Yeah, sure.
For now, we'll just discuss the Seychelles. Thank you so much, Dennis, for your time. We'll leave it there for today. We'll catch up with you next week, Tuesday.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Dennis Beru is journalist and team leader at Grassroots Journalism Kenya. He joins us on Tuesdays to focus on the East African region of our analysis on news and current affairs here on Rise and Shine. 6:30 Central African Time. Let's say good morning again to Jwalani Tulo. She has our news headlines.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines in a major development in peace talks in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The United Nations peacekeeping mission will send its first team to monitor a ceasefire between Congo's government and the M23 rebel group in the coming days. The Mpumalanga Department of Health in South Africa is urging residents to remain cautious amid a sharp rise in malaria cases in the province. And finally, former US President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will testify before the House Oversight Committee investigating the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Let's catch you up now with the world of sports as we say good morning again to Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Good morning, Asanda. We bet off with cricket news. South Africa's T20 captain Aiden Markram has urged his team to not overthink things as they head to the World Cup in India and Sri Lanka, with hopes of finally lifting an ICC limited overs trophy. South Africa jetted off to India to finalize preparations before their first match of the tournament against Canada a week from today. The Proteas reached the final of the T20 World Cup in Barbados but lost to India, and the skipper says they must play what's in front of them and forget the past.
You don't want to, yes, it is a World Cup, but you don't want to blow it too much out of proportion. You've got a job at hand to do on a cricket field, and if you can get yourself in that frame of mind to do that job well, then I think we give ourselves a good chance. So we'll see what is waiting for us that side from a conditions point of view. Obviously, that's going to be a lot of the chat now and come up with the plans from there.
Despite losing their final T20 international to West Indies here at home on Saturday, the Proteas won the series 2-1. And Markram says they will help the team's confidence along with standout individual showings during the SA20.
Yeah, I think what we can take there is obviously quite a bit of confidence. You look throughout SA20 as well, the guys have been doing really well and putting their hands up for their respective teams and winning games of cricket for their teams, which is obviously what you need at a World Cup. So guys can take that moving forward. From this series, I think role definition maybe was nicely refined for us and guys get a much better understanding. So I think that's a big positive as well. And when you get that side, you pick a team based on conditions and that can hopefully win you the game. So.
On to football news, former Bafana winger Spiwe Shabalala has reflected on his recent trip to Mexico as a FIFA legend, an initiative aimed at building excitement ahead of the 2026 World Cup in the Americas later this year. Now 41, the former Kaizer Chiefs star continues to reap the rewards of scoring the opening goal when South Africa hosted the global showpiece 16 years ago. Shaba, who featured as both the FIFA and the Coca-Cola ambassador, shared insights into what he described as a whirlwind 2 months.
And I was well received in Mexico, even though I expected, a hostile situation. But the welcome was great. I had so much fun, and also, rubbing shoulders with the best in the world. It was an incredible moment, a highlight as well, and it was a game that was also celebrating the preparation as well, and also the build-up for the World Cup in Mexico.
And finally, motor racing Mercedes driver George Russell says his hope for the 2026 Formula One season is to find himself in a title fight with Red Bull's Max Verstappen. Russell says he would love for it to turn out that way as he and Mercedes officially launched their new car. The 27-year-old Brighton added that he did not feel any more pressure as a result of his status as pre-season favourite. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Coming up on Rise and Shine.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let's catch you up with what's happening in the world of business. We get our first update on this Tuesday morning from Tabiso Lehugu.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and a very good morning. A key investor group in Ethiopia's Seoul International Bond plans to take legal action after the country's bilateral creditors blocked an initial agreement with the government on how to restructure the debt. Ethiopia recently said it would reopen negotiations with investors on the terms of restructuring the $1 billion bond after the official creditors committee, chaired by China and France, said the draft deal did not meet the comparability of treatment principle under the G20 restructuring initiative. Under the G20's common framework aimed at streamlining the process for struggling states to overhaul their debt, comparability of treatment requires commercial creditors to take similar losses to their official counterparts. Good news for motorists in South Africa this month as fuel prices are set to drop. The Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources has announced that motorists will be paying 65 South African cents less for both grades of petrol, between 50 and 57 South African cents less for diesel, and 70 cents less for eliminating paraffin. The department spokesperson, Robert Maki,
both grades of petrol will decrease by 65 cents a litre. Diesel will decrease by 50 and 57 cents a litre. Illuminating paraffin at retail level will decrease by 70 cents a litre. And LP gas will increase by 31 cents countrywide and by 36 cents in Western Cape. The main reason for this adjustment are as follows. The rand appreciated against the US dollar during the period under review and cushioned the fuel prices by 28 and 32 cents a litre.
Pepco Holdings, a South African discount retailer, has reported a 12.9% rise in first quarter revenue to $1.9 billion, driven by acquisitions and growth in its core brand, Pep, alongside demand for tech products. Group sales increased by 10.6% in the festive season trading quarter and ended December 31st compared to the same period in 2024, with a 5.2% rise when excluding acquisitions. Like-for-like sales rose 3%. The clothing and general merchandise segment saw 10.3% sales increase, while furniture, appliances, electronics grew by 13.7%. Commuters across Germany faced freezing temperatures and empty platforms of tens of thousands of public transport workers who walked off the job on Monday in a strike called by trade union Verdi, shutting down bus and tram services in most cities. The union, which represents nearly 100,000 transport workers, called the strike after talks with municipal and state employers over working conditions stalled last week. The union is demanding shorter shifts, longer rest breaks, and higher pay for night and weekend work, even as cities grapple with budget constraints. A collapse in the price of precious metals spilled into Asian markets in Monday's trading. The price of gold had tumbled as much as 9%. Silver has seen even greater percentage falls. Prices had hit record highs earlier this month after central banks added more bullion to their reserves and investors put money into safe haven assets due to financial and geopolitical uncertainties. Markets had also been worried about the independence of the U.S. Federal Reserve. The BBC's Nick Mush reports.
The price of gold has continued to fall in Asia trading this morning. Same goes for silver as well. The silver's kind of gone up a bit, then it's gone down a bit. But the general trend is gold and silver have continued to go down. The bulk, though, of the action was actually on Friday when there was some really big drops, about 10% in the price of gold. That was linked to a couple of things. President Trump confirming that he's appointing someone called Kevin Warsh as the new chair of America's central bank, the Federal Reserve.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 386. In Botswana, it's at 12.99. Kenya, 128 shilling 45. In Zambia, 19 kwacha 70. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5.25. Russia, 75 rubles 95. India, 91 rupees 61. China, 61.95. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 16 rand 7 cents. 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold, $4,802, while platinum is trading at $2,126 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $66.26 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoku.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. 6 decades strong, Channel Africa continues to inspire Africa and the world, proudly sharing
The African perspective.
your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Department of Health will this week begin the 2026 Human Papillomavirus or HPV vaccination drive to protect girls aged 9 years and older from developing cervical cancer later in life. South Africa continues to record a high number of cases of cervical cancer and related deaths annually, despite the availability of life-saving vaccines in public health facilities and in the private health sector. Sisi Sekhalo has more on the story.
Cervical cancer continues to be a challenge for South Africa, with over 5,700 cases reported each year in the country, while more than 3,000 women die from cervical cancer-related complications. The human papilloma vaccinations are expected to prevent cervical cancer from early stages. According to the country's health department, the introduction of the HPV program in 2014 has so far benefited more than 3.6 million girls, mostly in public schools. The spokesperson for the health department, Foster Mohale, elaborates on the campaign.
The program has now been expanded to reach all girls in both public and private schools, including special independent schools, to ensure no one is left behind. This annual campaign will target mostly girls in grade 5, aged 9 years and older, to protect them from cervical cancer, which remains the second most common cancer among women in South Africa after breast cancer. The success of the campaign to protect girls from this preventable yet deadly disease hinges on stronger collaboration among all stakeholders, especially parents and caregivers.
The HPV vaccination campaign is implemented in partnership with the Department of Basic Education and other stakeholders, including the World Health Organization and United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. Mohale has appealed to parents to cooperate to make the campaign a success.
The Department of Health appeals to all parents, caregivers, and legal guardians to prioritize the health and future of their children by signing the consent forms issued by the schools in order to enable them to receive this life-saving and free vaccination. Trained teams of health workers, including nurses, will be visiting schools across the country to carry out the HPV vaccination campaign as part of integrated school health program.
Meanwhile, the director and external affairs lead at Roche Diagnostics Southern Africa, Neo Mulusi, explains why early detection is important.
Screening allows us to detect HPV infection or abnormal cervical cells before they develop into cancer. When caught early, treatment is simple and highly effective, and women have a much better health outcome. South Africa's approach to cervical cancer prevention and care is changing in a positive way, and national guidelines now recommend HPV DNA testing as the primary screening method instead of relying only on pap smears. We also have self-sampling options which allow women to collect their own sample privately and send it for testing, making screening more accessible and less intimidating.
Mulusi adds that there are still barriers that prevents women from accessing screening. This include lack of awareness, fear or discomfort with examinations, some cultural sensitivities, and limited access to healthcare services. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Still to come, we have a warning from the United Nations World Food Programme, or WFP, about the escalating conflict in South Sudan, Jonglei State. They worry that this is putting hundreds of thousands of lives at risk. We'll be getting into that conversation with WFP Communications Officer in South Sudan.
60 years of Channel Africa, your trusted voice, your African perspective. Into the future.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
A situação do ativista angolano Serrote José de Oliveira, preso desde julho, tem gerado grande preocupação internacional. Conhecido como General Nila e presidente do movimento União Nacional para a Total Revolução de Angola, Serrote iniciou uma greve de fome em protesto contra a sua prisão, que considera arbitrária. De acordo com a Amnistia Internacional, o estado de saúde do ativista está a deteriorar-se rapidamente devido à falta de acesso a cuidados médicos adequados. Para discutir o impacto deste caso e o estado da liberdade política em Angola, vamos conversar com Dito Dale, ativista e defensor dos direitos humanos.
Nós estamos diante de uma clara estratégia de aniquilar o jovem, porque quando uma pessoa está doente, deve ser assistido. Ao não proporcionar esses cuidados médicos, o que é que o regime quer? Não quer que esse jovem saia livre e com vida da prisão, quer matá-lo.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
The United Nations World Food Programme, WFP, is warning that escalating conflict in South Sudan's Jonglei State is putting hundreds of thousands of lives at risk, as nearly 60% of the state's 2 million residents are expected to face crisis levels of hunger during the upcoming lean season from April to July. WFP says renewed military operations could force mass displacement and cut off access to food assistance at a critical time, as heavy rains soon make key roads impassable. For more on this, we joined on the line by South Sudan WFP Communications Officer Thomson Phiri. Thomson, thank you for joining us. Good morning to you.
Morning, Asanda. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. How dire is the situation on the ground in Jonglei State as you see it? And what are you seeing in terms of hunger levels and displacement?
Look, even before the escalation of the conflict that we're seeing right now, this is a state that was in very dire needs. The latest clashes have displaced over 280,000 people across the state. Now, this is not the first time people are being displaced. Neither is it the second time. They have been displaced multiple times. They lack just about everything. I was in Jonglei State just last week. Many of them are sheltering in bushes. Some are in makeshift shelter. Others have moved into host communities with very, very minimal access to basic services. This crisis has just exacerbated pre-existing needs that we were aware of. 60% of that population have no idea of where their next meal will come from. And what makes it worse is that aid workers cannot access them.
What immediate actions are required then from authorities and those warring parties or conflicting parties to ensure that this situation does not deteriorate further, especially in these critical weeks leading up to that period of April to July that we speak about?
Yeah, it's not rocket science at all. We need peace in South Sudan, but especially now in Jonglei, we urgently need a de-escalation. We need an urgent stop to military operations, and we need authorities to allow safe humanitarian access. Even war has rules. I mean, we need them to allow us to move in as humanitarians. We need the no-fly zone to be lifted so that we can move in with the supplies that the country needs. We need as well to pre-position food ahead of the rainy season, which you rightly say. And the window of opportunity is very, very narrow. And unless we are able to move in with food and supplies right now, we risk running a very expensive air operation later. And nobody can afford that.
Are you facing any challenges when it comes to clearances in reaching the areas that you need to as the World Food Programme in terms of the operational challenges?
Yes, we are. There were military. There was a significant military build-up in the last few weeks in Jonglei, and it's been very difficult for humanitarians as well to access. The crisis, the impact of this particular crisis is much wider. In that we are unable to move in as the World Food Programme with food, but that also means others are unable to move in because the World Food Programme also moves other relief supplies on behalf of other partners. The World Food Programme as well runs an airline, a humanitarian air service in South Sudan, and we have not received clearance from authorities to coordinate either road convoys, passenger flights on behalf of the humanitarian sector, and we feel authorities need to respect international humanitarian law and give us the humanitarian space for us to be able to respond.
So far, what is the response then from authorities about those clearances?
We negotiate with authorities every day. We seek for clearances on a daily basis. Sometimes it's delayed, sometimes we receive it, but then when we move in as well, our security and our safety sometimes is not guaranteed. And humanitarian access that is delayed is denied.
With this lean season approaching of April to July and roads likely to become impassable due to rains, how critical is the window for pre-positioning food supplies at this stage?
Well, I've been in South Sudan for a very long time because there is very, very limited infrastructure. we have a very narrow window of opportunity for us to move supplies into areas that will become impassable with the onset of the rainy season. South Sudan is a country the size of France, but it has just 250 to 300 kilometers of paved roads. It is one of the longest rainy season. It's really a blessed country. But unless we move now, it means WFP would have to take to the skies much later because those roads will become impassable. We would love to move in now because it's cheaper. We will be able to move in not only with food, but also to bring other partners along and move other supplies. These people in Jonglei need just about everything, from water and sanitation, health supplies, children needs nutrition support. This is a country with a lot of vulnerabilities. 2 million women are malnourished. 1 million children are also malnourished. They need support, and they need it now.
There's no telling, I mean, in this lean season, whether it will be as it has been in previous years or the rainfall might be even worse in 2026, especially coming from the backdrop of so many countries on the continent having experienced flood levels that are unprecedented. Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique, South Africa as well in later days.
That's right. South Sudan has also been affected by floods in previous years. We are hoping for the best, that when flooding season comes, probably they will be spared. These are people who cannot seem to catch a break. And our hope is that authorities would allow us safe humanitarian access to deliver life-saving food assistance. The pre-positioning window can be the difference between life and death for some people. We need that access now because also with everything that is happening in the world, donors have dug deep into their pockets to ensure that we do have some kind of resources. But unless we can move in now, that investment is at risk, as we'll soon be going back to ask for more so that we can use costly airdrops, which are up to 17 times more expensive than surface transport.
Right. Does the WFP have enough resources? Do you have enough food and funding and logistical capacity to meet the needs of those affected in Jonglei State and further parts of South Sudan? Or are you calling for some assistance and resources are urgently required?
As things stand, WFP was going to pre-position 15,000 metric tons of food supplies in parts of Jonglei. We have had to pause that due to insecurity. In South Sudan as a whole, WFP requires 675 million and for the whole of 2026, and we are currently short of 341 million right now. Our critical needs include this pre-positioning before the start of the rainy season. It makes a lot of economic sense. It's not hard. If we're able to move in now, we will save. It's an investment in time. It's an investment that will save us a lot of dollars much later. Food and nutrition requirements for crisis people as well are needed now to allow us to mount an effective response later. So we are now in a very, very tight race against time that we need to be able to fundraise and also be able to operate before the onset of the rainy season. We have experience working in this country. We have experience working in active conflict settings, but this time we are being denied the opportunity to do so.
Your message to the people of Jonglei State as the World Food Programme?
Well, I was there last week and just listening to everybody. They are tired of conflict. They would like an opportunity for peace. Almost every South Sudanese I met, they told me that thanks for coming. We are tired, but so is the rest of the world. What we can do as the World Food Programme at the moment is just to stand with them, to continue to call for peace, to continue to advocate for humanitarian space, because we have the know-how, we have the tools, we have the ability, and we're really committed to help them.
Thank you so much, Thompson. We'll leave it there for today and for the work that you're doing there in South Sudan.
Thank you so much for having me, Asanda.
You never tire there. Thompson Piri is South Sudan WFP Communications Officer, giving us the latest in what the situation is in Jonglei State and the assistance that they are attempting to do, that they have already implemented, but also the more that they want cooperation from South Sudan's authorities. It's now time for our news. We enter the second hour of Rise and Shine, 7 o'clock Central African time it is. I'm Asanda, Beda. Let's say good morning to Jolani Tulongwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. In a major development in peace talks in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the United Nations peacekeeping mission will send its first team to monitor a ceasefire between Congo's government and the M23 rebel group in the coming days. Qatar's foreign ministry made the announcement after hosting talks in Doha. The team will be deployed to Uvira, a strategic city in eastern Congo that M23 fighters captured in December during a rapid offensive. Congolese forces and allied militias, however, re-entered Uvira last month, restoring government control after the rebels announced they would withdraw. The United States is hosting separate talks between Congo and Rwanda. Morocco has evacuated more than 50,000 people, nearly half the population of the northwestern city of Kessa el-Kebir. A flooding driven by weeks of heavy rain threatened to inundate the city. Reports say the city has become a ghost town after some residents have either left voluntarily or have been evacuated. Authorities set up shelters in temporary camps and barred entry into the city as rising water levels in the Lukos River spread across several neighborhoods. Only departures from the city were permitted. The National Commissioner of Correctional Services, Mahoti Tomahale, has revealed that South Africa's inmate population has risen to over 170,000, far exceeding the department's approved bed capacity. He was speaking during a media briefing on the outcomes of the department's festive season security operations. Tomahale says the situation has placed enormous pressure on staffing and security.
During the festive season, the inmate population exceeded 739,000. Far surpassing the department's approved capacity of approximately 167 beds. This level of incarceration represents the highest population recorded in recent years and has placed immense pressure on infrastructure, staffing, security management, budget, and it's also compounded by reduced court activity during the festive season.
Still in South Africa, the Mpumalanga Department of Health is urging residents to remain cautious amid a sharp rise in malaria cases in the province. The department registered more than 300 cases last month. Director for Communicable Diseases, Mandla Zwane, attributes the increase in malaria to the recent floods in the province.
We are saying there is an increase of cases this year compared to last year, because last year, the whole January, we had 69 cases, but if you look now, we have 314 cases, so hence there is some increase of cases. The mostly affected district is Etanzeni, that mostly affected the sub-district, that is local municipalities, which are Nkomazi, city of Mbombela, and Bushbuckridge. It's high numbers of those cases are at Nkomazi.
Former U.S. President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will testify before the House Oversight Committee investigating the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The course reversal from the Clintons comes after they had already informed the Republican-led committee in the House of Representatives that they would not testify and were now facing a criminal contempt referral to the Justice Department. Showan Bryce Pease reports.
Clinton lawyers earlier wrote to the committee that the subpoenas were legally unenforceable and deployed to attempt to embarrass political rivals at the direction of President Donald Trump. When the 47-member House Oversight Committee voted to pursue the contempt charges last month, 9 of the 21 Democrats who served there voted with the Republican majority. The Clintons are among a bevy of big political names included in the massive Epstein-related document dumped by the Department of Justice. Committee Chair, Republican Congressman James Comer, said they were still grappling with the terms and dates for the future depositions.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
A sports headline: there will be no Formula One in South Africa in 2027. And former SAFA chief executive believes the country is capable of hosting the WAFCON. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
7:05 Central African Time, and welcome to the second hour of Rise and Shine. If you've just joined us, good morning, and we are Channel Africa. From the African perspective, we broadcast in South Africa, in Johannesburg more specifically. My name is Asanda, Beda, and we're together again for the next 2 hours because we will be saying goodbye around 9 a.m. In this hour, we look at Uganda. They're saying that they're planning to slash external budget support by 84% starting from the next financial year in July. The Finance Ministry made that announcement late on Wednesday that funding, mainly in the form of loans and grants, is expected to drop sharply from more than $586 million to just $92.7 million. There's no specific reason that was given for the reduction, but we'll get into that story in a bit. Also, we go to Nigeria. There's a long-running struggle there to reform the electoral laws, and this has once again come into focus. In a recent article, Development and Electoral Specialist has warned of a few things, and also one of them being the delays in passing the electoral bill and how that is slowing democratic consolidation, and we'll get into that story in conversation a little bit later. Connect with us on channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app via mobile phone, as well as live streaming on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. That handle is also across our various social media platforms, where we welcome your thoughts about our programming and questions that you may have.
Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za. Growing with Africa for 60 years. Channel Africa celebrates 2026 with the African Perspective.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Heya, a China-based multinational home appliances manufacturer, has officially entered the South African market. The company says the move positions South Africa as its starting point for expansion into the rest of the African continent. The launch, which took place at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg, brought together government representatives, diplomats and business leaders to discuss investment, energy efficiency and industrial development. Our reporter Lebogang Mabange has more.
South Africa's market size, regional influence and economic profile were cited as key factors behind Haya's decision to launch locally. Addressing attendees at the launch, Jeffrey Lee, Senior Vice President of the Haya Group and Chairman and CEO of Haya Smart Home, explained why the company identified South Africa as its entry point into Africa.
Actually, South Africa has great potential, and because for the following reasons. And first of all, South Africa has a population of 60 million, and the average GDP per capita is around $6,000, which is also among the best in Africa continent. And so in the future, it will have a great potential. And that's why we put South Africa as the first stop to enter into the African market. And besides, South Africa is also a member of SADC as well as SACU.
Haya says its product offering is designed to respond to South Africa's electricity constraints with a focus on energy efficiency and alternative power solutions. Lee says the company believes its technology can address local challenges.
We know that South Africa is lack of electricity, and so we use solar, and we actually save up to 70% of the energy saving, and which is also bringing value to the local customers. So in general, or in summary, and we would say that we will bring both technology, but also bring the products which can be applied and used in the local markets according to the local demand.
The launch took place against the backdrop of growing economic cooperation between China and African countries. Qin Jinping, Minister Plenipotentiary at the Embassy of the People's Republic of China in South Africa, outlined China's broader approach to supporting industrialization on the continent.
China has released its action plan for implementing the G20 initiative on supporting industrialization in Africa and least developed countries, supporting efforts to reduce the debt difficulties of developing countries. Together with South Africa, China has also proposed the initiative on cooperation supporting modernization in Africa, demonstrating China's firm commitment to Africa's modernization and industrialization.
From a provincial government perspective, the investment was framed as part of efforts to strengthen local manufacturing and integration into global value chains. Vuyiswa Ramokhupa, member of the Executive Council for Agriculture and Rural Development in the Gauteng province, says the entry of global manufacturers can contribute to long-term industrial growth.
This occasion is not simply about a change of ownership nor a financial transaction measured by balance sheets. It is a strategic industrial investment that deepens South Africa's manufacturing base, strengthens localization, and embeds our economy more firmly into global and regional value chains. This is the kind of investment that builds resilience, capability, and long-term competitiveness. And it's exactly the type of investment that Gauteng seeks to attract.
Haya has not yet outlined the scale of its local operations or manufacturing footprint, but says South Africa will play a central role in its plans for the African market. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Nigeria's long-running struggle to reform its electoral laws is once again in focus. In a recent article, development and electoral specialist Austin Aigbe warns that delays in passing the electoral bill are slowing democratic consolidation, weakening public trust, and entrenching elite control. With the 2027 elections approaching, he joins us now from Abuja to explain why timely reform matters for Nigeria's democratic future. Austin, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So let's talk about, in your article then, the part where you say Nigeria's problem isn't holding elections but consolidating democracy. What is the difference and why does it matter at this particular point?
So election has become a regular event to arguably give credibility to transition in power. So we have seen elections in Nigeria where parties have changed hands. In 2015, incumbent political party lost election and a new party emerged. And over a decade now, we've seen an erosion of those trust. Democratic backsliding is setting in. Those who are in power now do not want to leave, but they consistently conduct election. I am saying that regular election alone does not give hope and does not consolidate democracy. What consolidates democracy is the trust and confidence in that process, and that delays in passing reform that will enhance that capacity of citizens to select or to elect the right individual to govern them is becoming a challenge. But just simply holding an election, which is a regular event, even though we always argue that regular election is a component in a democracy. But I am arguing elsewhere in Nigeria, in Africa, there'll be regular election. In fact, we have regular election in Uganda, regular election in Tanzania. But all of those regular elections has not satisfied the will of the people, and that is why you see protests and mass killings and all of those in those countries. Elections alone is not enough because elite capture, elite manipulation continue to shape how those elections run. And my argument in the article is that if you delay in Nigeria specifically, that delayed electoral reform has implication on delayed democratic consolidation.
So as you say, it's become a regular event. It's become routine that there are delays in passing the electoral bill. Why is it stalling this process when it would seem that everybody is agreeing that it is necessary to have electoral bills come into place and a reform?
Yes, we had in 2022. So the current electoral act came to life in 2022 when the late former president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, delayed to sign the bill 5 times. His argument was that the particular clause he wanted has not been inserted in the bill. So the National Assembly had to insert that in the selection of candidates in the political party that he wanted, a consensus approach. So there had to be indirect primaries, there had to be direct primaries, which were the only provisions in the law. He said, no, there should be a provision on consensus that the parties who are contesting the election can come together and agree on a candidate. So further shrinking the space for the selection of credible candidates within the political party. So it further dismantled the internal party democracy. And that is why you see today, the party system in Nigeria is so weird that defections are literally undermining a democratic experience. People have literally decamped to a ruling party because it seems like the only hope to win election. And that is why we're saying that having elections alone is not enough. So President Buhari, now late, continued to declare assets. And this is even worse because we've got about a year to elections. 2027 is in February. The current law requires that INEC must announce the date of poll at least 1 year to poll. And right now, by that 1 year provision, it's just maybe about 20 days or thereabout to an election. So INEC must declare that, and which means once that is declared, there will be no need for an electoral reform because you would have INEC would be going ahead with the same electoral provision that the citizens have said they don't want. So we're going to be going to an election with a bill that led to glitches in the 2023 elections, that led to citizens' form of upheaval in the 2023 elections. And all of those reforms, particularly the transmission of results from polling unit to a portal called the INEC Result Viewing Portal, so citizens can view their results at the polling unit, so political parties and citizens can truly collect results ahead of declaration by INEC. and a lot of other very fantastic innovation that is awaiting confirmation at the Senate. Just the Senate. The House of Reps has already passed it. Just the Senate. And the Senate is deliberately delaying that provision, that amendment process. However, a few days ago, they set up a committee to try to amend. But that committee, if it doesn't return the bill, it doesn't send it to the president for assent, it will just be a waste of time, waste of taxpayers' money for the past 2 years that the bill has been trying to be, the amendment process started about 2 years ago.
You mentioned that courts are increasingly deciding elections. Has the judiciary been forced into this role because lawmakers are not making the decisions fast enough that need to be made?
That's exactly what's happening. Last year, we did a policy brief and came out, personally, I thought it was important to state it, that the courts are becoming what I tag the court units. So elections are done at the polling unit, but the real decision of who is being elected goes to the court. A few years ago, we had a candidate who came out the fourth position. The court decided and overturned the person who won the election and gave the fourth person the position of a governor in a state. A very weird judicial pronouncement that the court later agreed that they made a mistake. Politicians, particularly the elite, they are gradually waiting for the polling unit to have its course of action, and then we declare whatever they want to declare. Then they head to the court, and the court processes, which are really limited with time because it has time lag, because the judiciary want to quickly get the thing out of their hands. They just make declaration based on whatever feeling they have, using certain provisions, which judiciary, we say in Nigeria or around the world, that the judiciary is the last of common man. So when the judiciary makes pronouncement, every other commentaries you have will have to be stalled. So that's the challenge we have, that the judiciary are becoming more and more involved in the country's electoral system. The judiciary is not supposed to pronounce a candidate. If the processes are flawed, the judiciary should ask the Electoral Commission to return back to the field and conduct election. But having the judiciary now declare a candidate is weird. And that is the whole idea of manipulation. And that's the whole idea of elite consensus. So just wait. If you can't buy the vote at the polling unit, but it's better you buy vote, and that's why there is more and more vote buying in the country. People are paying as high as $10, $20 for just a vote. It is becoming a weird scenario.
Right. Austin, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. We always appreciate you chatting to us here on Rise and Shine.
Thank you very much, and have a blessed day.
You do the same. Thank you. That was Austin Aigbe, a development and electoral specialist, speaking to us from Abuja. He's written a piece on an article on the reform of the electoral laws in Nigeria, the lack thereof, the delays on that, and how that is impacting democratic consolidation in a way that it slows it down and it also weakens public trust.
As Africa renews, so does its voices. 60 years of Channel Africa. Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app.
Madapiri Bazoshitika. Madapiri Bazoshitika.
Madotolo oposa 1,500 amene amagwira ntchito yaulere mu zipatala zaboma mu dziko la Zambia azanyanyala ntchito lachisanu sabata yammawa, ndipo Daniel Shabanda kutambasula nkhaniyi.
Madotolo oposa 1,500 amene amagwira ntchito mopanda malipiro apamwezi dziko la Zambia akuyembekezera kuyamba kunyanyala ntchito. Ichi ndi chifukwa chakuti boma lalephera kumayamba ntchito monga mmene lidawalonjezera. Channel Africa News yalankhulana ndi mkulu wa bungwe la madotolo la Resident Doctors Association of Zambia, Dr. Paul Chiwe. Akugomeza kuti madotolo ambiri amene akugwira ntchito mu zipatala zaboma akugwira ntchito yaulere ndipo ali ndi chiyembekezo chakuti tsiku lina adzalembedwa ntchito ndi boma.
zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi Madapiri.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma's name, appears in newly released documents by the U.S. Justice Department in its latest tranche of the Epstein files. The Department of Justice has published over 3 million additional pages in responsive to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which was signed into law by President Donald Trump last November. A series of emails found in the massive tranche of documents makes reference to dinner arranged at London's Ritz Hotel on March 5th of 2010, while Zuma was on a state visit to the United Kingdom. The Jacob Zuma Foundation has dismissed media reports into the revelations as speculative narrative building and that it regarded the matter as closed. Sherwin Bryce Peace reports on a sequence of emails in which Zuma is named.
An email from a Mark Lloyd on March 4th, 2010 invites someone named Vera to a small dinner hosted for then President Zuma, who is encouraged to attend to add some real glamour to the occasion. Another email then shows a response from someone who says she's honored to accept the invitation and describes herself as a Russian model who's lived in London for 2 years. An email purportedly from Epstein to British diplomat Peter Mandelson on March 5th, 2010 reads that Mark Lloyd was hosting Zuma the following day at the Ritz and that he had invited someone whose name was redacted but described as beautiful to attend. A March 6th email to Epstein the day after the referenced dinner from Mark Lloyd describes Zuma as being a more impressive character than was expected, who displayed more gravitas and none of the macho bluster portrayed in the tabloid press. Sherwin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.
As we continue with matters involving South Africa, the Commission into Police Investigations meddling in South Africa continues at the Madlanga Commission. A senior forensic analyst in the police service, or SAPS, who authored the ballistics report in the Armand Swart murder case, has charged that the inaccuracies were erroneous and not aimed at sabotaging the case. That's in response to evidence last year from Witness B, one of the investigators in the matter, who alleged that the report was manipulated to derail the case that implicates alleged cartel member Katiso KT Molefe. Sibahle Mota has more.
SAP's senior forensic analyst, Captain Lawrence Makgetle, has poured cold water on the claim that he deliberately manipulated the ballistics report into the murder of Vereniging engineer Armand Swart. Makgetle testified that the report contained typing errors, but it was not aimed at negatively impacting the case.
I can safely say those were typing errors, and those typing errors were supposed to be picked up at the reviewing process, but was not picked up at the reviewing process. I cannot indicate as to for what reason, but I can say it amounts to work pressure as well.
Evidence leader, Advocate Debo Homosikili, put it to Captain Makgetle that the errors made on the report risk the potential success of the investigation.
So I'm saying to you, the document that you handed as a report of the outcome of the work that you are showing us that you did not give a positive link. That's why there was a need for you to rectify it or to amend, as it were. That's a simple proposition, and I think you already...
Yes, I accept that, Commissioner.
Makgetle's testimony further highlighted the shortcomings of the forensic labs in the country, which are said to be facing demands that outweigh the resources.
And I will believe that those errors that the Council is leading me with falls within this category. So it cannot be incompetence or deliberate. What is the other one?
Negligence.
negligence. But as I already indicated, commissioners, that the errors will arise time to time as long as there is still pressure at the lab. The errors will always be there because we push quantities, not quality.
Hearings continue on Tuesday with a new witness. I am Sibatle Mota in Pretoria.
Still to come on Rise and Shine, we catch you up with what's happening in the world of sports as well as our business news. Do get in touch with us on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube. That's where we are live streaming. Our handles are at Channel Africa 1 across those different platforms. Let's catch you up with the news as we get our news headlines. And we say good morning again to Jwalane Tulo Ngwepe.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines in a major development in peace talks in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the United Nations peacekeeping mission will send its first team to monitor a ceasefire between Congo's government and the M23 rebel group in the coming days. Police in Nigeria say at least 80 congregants, earlier believed to have been abducted by gunmen from 3 churches in the northern parts of the country last month, have returned home. And finally, a court in Bangladesh has sentenced the ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and 3 of her family members to varying prison terms in separate corruption cases. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Time now for our sports update, and here's Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We begin with football news this hour. Former South African Football Association SAFA Chief Executive Dennis Mamble believes the country will be ready to step in and host a successful 2026 CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. If Morocco decides to pull out, like it's allegedly threatened to do, South Africa will have just over a month to prepare to host the 16-team biennial tournament. Deputy Minister of Sport, Peace Mabe, stated on Sunday that South Africa is the new host of the tournament. But Sports Minister Getty McKenzie was forced to release a statement later saying South Africa merely expressed its willingness to support CAF should alternative hosting arrangements become necessary.
Is it possible for us to host a tournament of the magnitude of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations with 60 days notice? Yes, I think it is possible for us to do so. We have proven in the past that we can step in at the last minute, as we've shown with the 1996 Africa Cup of Nations, and we've done it very successfully.
On to rugby news. The Blitzboks are en route to Perth in Australia for round 4 of the HSBC Sevens Perth at the HBF Stadium on the 7th and the 8th of February. The Blitzboks are poised to face Fiji, Spain and Argentina in Pool A. The South African Sevens team missed a real opportunity to get ahead in the World Rugby Sevens series. They had to settle for a 4th place finish at the Singapore Sevens over the weekend. Coach Philip Snyman wants his team to become more adept at reading the game and using possession.
It's very frustrating and a tough weekend out in Singapore. I think always knew it's going to be a difficult weekend for us. We wanted to give a couple of youngsters the opportunity, but within saying that, I don't think we were clinical enough. We didn't use any of our opportunities. One thing I think that stand out for me, if there's any positive, is the youngsters that got a tournament under the belt, that played against the Fiji, that played against New Zealand, that played against France, and also the effort and attitude. I think there was a lot of effort and attitude.
On to motor racing. South African Formula One F1 racing fans will have to wait a little longer to experience the high-octane sport after the countries underestimated the requirements for staging a Grand Prix. F1 fever in South Africa hit the headlines when Minister of Sport Getty McKenzie met with Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali at the Azerbaijan Formula One event in September 2024. At the time, McKenzie said South Africa was one step closer to bringing F1 to the country following his meeting with President Mohammed Ben Sulayem of the FIA. 2027 was always an expected date for the South African F1 Grand Prix, with Mackenzie making several announcements about the sport coming to the country during that year. However, 2027 may not be the year for F1 cars racing around a track in the country. Mackenzie says they have not given up and that a team of experts has been appointed to prepare a stronger bid for 2028 or 2029. And now tennis news, local competitor Nikola Bantunkova delivered a pleasant surprise to the fans in attendance when she knocked off number 3rd seed Anna Blinkova of Russia 6-4, 6-4 in the opening round of the Ostrava Open in Ostrava, Czech Republic. In a closely contested match, Bantunkova broke serve up 5-4 in each set to come away with an upset. Linda Fuvintokova also won in her home country, beating Germany's Mona Barthel 7-6, 4 and 6-4. Her older sister Brenda Fruvintova was not so lucky, falling 6-1, 6-1 to French qualifier Fiona Ferro. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Still to come on Rise and Shine, a recent study by the Inyathelo, the South African Institute for Advancement, has some highlights on how global financial regulations meant to prevent money laundering are actually creating unintended challenges for South Africa's non-profit sector. We'll find out what those challenges are and in what ways is it doing that as we speak to an advocate on that, one of the report's authors.
Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. Enjoy the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let's find out now what's happening in the world of business, and Tabiso Lehuko is about to update us.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Good morning. Uganda says it plans to slash external budget support by 84% starting from the next financial year in July. The Finance Ministry announced late on Wednesday that funding, mainly in the form of loans and grants, is expected to drop sharply from more than $586 million to just $92.7 million. While no specific reason was given for the reduction, the government says it is prioritizing strategies to boost domestic revenue mobilization. Economist John Kagungulu Walugembe says the move is not realistic.
Is domestically generated. In fact, what might happen is that government might resort to domestic borrowing, which will simply make the situation that the country is in now rather difficult.
A key investor group in Ethiopia's Seoul International Bond plans to take legal action after the country's bilateral creditors have blocked an initial agreement with the government on how to restructure the debt. Ethiopia recently said it would reopen negotiations with investors on the terms of restructuring the $1 billion bond after the official creditor committee, chaired by China and France, said the draft deal did not meet the comparability of treatment principle under the G20 restructuring initiative. Under the G20's common framework aimed at streamlining the process for struggling states to overhaul their debt, comparability of treatment requires commercial creditors to take similar losses to their official counterparts. Good news for motorists in South Africa this month, as fuel prices are set to drop tomorrow. The Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources has announced that motorists will be paying 65 South African cents less for both grades of petrol, between 50 and 57 cents less for diesel and 70 cents less for eliminating paraffin. The department's spokesperson, Robert Make.
Both grades of petrol will decrease by 65 cents a litre. Diesel will decrease by 50 and 57 cents a litre. Illuminating paraffin at retail level will decrease by 70 cents a litre. And LP gas will increase by 31 cents countrywide and by 36 cents in Western Cape. The main reason for this adjustment are as follows. The rand appreciated against the US dollar during the period under review and cushioned the fuel prices by 28 and 32 cents a litre.
Pepco Holdings, a South African discount retailer, has reported a 12.9% rise in first quarter revenue to $1.9 billion, driven by acquisitions and growth in its core clothing brand, Pep, alongside demand for tech products. Group sales increased by 10.6% in the festive season trading quarter, ended December the 31st, compared to the same period in 2024, with a 5.2% rise when excluding acquisitions. Like-for-like sales rose by 3%. The clothing and general merchandise segment saw a 10.3% sales increase, while furniture, appliances and electronics grew by 13.7%. Gold and Asian stocks were on the rebound as traders took a calmer tone after wild swings in metal markets, with the mood helped by a sharp jump in U.S. factory activity, while the Australian dollar rose after an interest rate hike. Australia's central bank is the first among G10 countries to hike this cycle, besides Japan, which is on its own path and said above target inflation and a tight labour market justified a unanimous decision to lift the cash rate 25 basis points to 3.85%. Markets had mostly anticipated the move, though it was enough to push the Aussie about 0.8% higher and over 70 cents. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 394. Botswana 13 pula 33. Kenya 128 shillings 651. And Zambia 19 kwacha 66. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar 5 ruble 25, Russia 76 rubles 22, India 91 rupees 22, China 61.94, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 16 rand 11 cents, 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold is trading at $4,758 and platinum $2,136 per ounce. Brand crude oil is at $65.80 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabisolo Ogu.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. Africa's story shines at 60. Channel Africa.
The African perspective.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Just a little shy of 7:43 Central African time. We go to Uganda now. One of the stories touched on our business update, actually. Uganda says it plans to slash external budget support by 84%, starting from the next financial year in July. The Finance Ministry announced late on Wednesday that funding, mainly in the form of loans and grants, is expected to drop sharply from more than $586 million to just $92.7 million. While no specific reason was given for the reduction, the government says it is prioritizing strategies to boost domestic revenue mobilization. Is this more fiscally realistic, or does it risk widening funding gaps in the short term? Well, here is economist John Kangungulu Walungebe weighing in on this matter.
So Uganda plans to cut external budget support by 84%. In my opinion, this is not realistic. If you look at the size of Uganda's budget now and the credit appetite, I don't think it's realistic to say that Uganda will have a budget that is domestically generated. In fact, what might happen is that government might resort to domestic borrowing, which will simply make the situation that the country is in now rather difficult. Because if you look at the entire debt stock, you find that increasingly government is borrowing domestically. What that does is that it crowds out the private sector, makes it more difficult for businesses to access credit at affordable rates from financial institutions. And this is something that the IMF noted in its last review. The fact that government is increasingly borrowing from domestic financial institutions is something that was looked at as a risk to the Ugandan economy. So I don't think it's realistic. And in any case, the economy at this point is not in a position to absorb such a shock. So I don't think it's realistic at all. Domestic revenue mobilization, in my opinion, on its own cannot fill this gap. And also with the projected oil revenues, we are not sure when the production phase will start. So without that assurance that oil revenues will fill the gap, I would still say it's unrealistic. If you look at URA's performance over the last months, if you look at the health of the business sector, there's no reason for me to believe that this proposal is realistic by any measure. Regarding reducing domestic debt issuance, I don't think that's still possible. On one hand, you can't say you're cutting external budget support, and then you also say you're going to reduce domestic debt issuance. It doesn't make sense. If you're cutting external budget support, then what will most naturally happen is that you will tend to issue more domestic debt. So I don't really think that you can achieve both at the same time and you meet your goals. The other way would be to drastically cut public expenditure and also social spending, which would further make it difficult. If you look at the education sector, the health sector, I think they would suffer. Already government has a very narrow fiscal space to intervene in some of these areas because of its debt repayment obligations. So I don't think there's much room to reduce domestic debt while simultaneously cutting external budget support.
The Student Representative Council, or SRC, at South Africa's Walter Sisulu University in the Eastern Cape province has refuted assertions by the institution's management that the institution is ready to commence the 2026 academic year. The student body says the institution has not concluded critical maintenance of some lecture halls and accommodation at its campuses, and that this will have a negative impact on the seamlessness of the academic year. The institution presented its State of Readiness report for this academic year to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee in the province. Shumisa Kabaka has more.
Walter Sisulu University currently has more than 27,000 registered students, with more than 23,000 being funded students. The institution claims study material is ready and curriculum and the approval by the Senate has already been done ahead of the commencement of academic activities. Although the university says it is prepared for the academic year, student representative Mvelo Abenta says issues of academic exclusion of some students, weakened security force in its institutions, and the poor state of student residence have not been resolved.
Whilst we are saying we are ready, if there are still maintenance issues that are being done by this time, they are a clear indication that the university did not prepare properly for this academic year, because the campus accommodation accommodates around about 3,500 students in third, for 1,500 to 800 in Parawet, and for almost 750 in Postem. If we are saying those students would be at least disturbed during this period of saying we are reading, we are commencing classes, that means then we are just subjecting the university to a lot of chaos.
The institution has received more than 557,000 applications for this academic year, but only managed to accept just above 7,000 first-year students. University Council attributed the hindrance to government's delay in approving the institution's online learning enrollment. Says that the system in place creates a problem in accommodating the influx of students.
Our own solution, and I accept it is a small solution in the grand scheme of things, is that if we cannot accommodate these students in the physical halls, we should at least be able to accommodate them in the virtual halls. But the problem is that DHED has not given us the right to do so. We've asked them, and they have not given us the right to do so. We could potentially double the capacity of the children we have at WUSU. We have 30,000. We could be teaching 60,000 if we took some of them out of campus.
Parliament Portfolio Committee Chairperson Walter Litsai says there is a breakdown in communication between the institution and the Department of Higher Education and Training, a communication barrier that it will thoroughly investigate.
They have not seen the DG in a very long time themselves. Ourselves were even were forced to write to the President of the Republic to indicate that the DG does not want to account. He does not attend portfolio committee meetings since last year. He sent an apology today at 11:53, saying he won't come today because he has interviews. I mean, if you had interviews, you'll know before time.
Excuse me. Walter Sisulu, Vice Chancellor, who assumed the office late last year, Dr. Thandi Mgwebi, says the challenges expressed by students are not new to management and they are part of the long-term recovery plans of the institution. Khumisa Qabaka, SABC News, Komani.
A recent study by Inyathelo, the South African Institute for Advancement, is what we'll be talking about in just a bit. There's some issues that have been highlighted there, and also how those are creating unintended challenges for South Africa's non-profit sector. We'll be speaking to one of the report's authors to unpack.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective. Channel Africa, 1060. 6 decades of stories, voices, and vision.
Téléchargez l'application Channel Africa sur votre Play Store ou Apple Store afin de pouvoir suivre toutes nos émissions en direct de là où vous vous trouvez. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Inyathelo, the South African Institute for Advancement, has issued a recent study where they highlight how global financial regulations meant to prevent money laundering are creating unintended challenges for South Africa's non-profit sector. The report points to issues like account closures, heavy compliance requirements, and the risk of driving organizations into informality. Joining us now is one of the report's authors, who's also an advocate, Gary Pina, to discuss the findings and the recommendations for safeguarding the NPO sector. Gary, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Asanda. Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners and viewers.
Thanks. We appreciate you making time to chat to us this morning. To start, what
Pleasure.
motivated you to launch into the study and to look at how FATF regulations are affecting South Africa's NPO sector?
Thank you, Asanda. Well, it was Inyathelo that commissioned myself and my colleagues, Dr. Michael Kosso and Dr. Maxwell Maseko, to undertake this research. They wanted to understand what activities regulatory authorities and other stakeholders were undertaking in response to the legal changes in South Africa following the FATF regulations or recommendations on non-profit sector, to measure the impact of those changes in activities, regulatory activities on the sector, and then also to be able to respond effectively on behalf of non-profits in South Africa.
The report highlights that many organizations are being debanked or they're having their accounts frozen. What's behind that?
Well, as part of South Africa's efforts to exit from the grey list, the FATF grey list, many of your listeners and viewers will have heard of that. We had to tighten up our financial activities and management in South Africa generally. And part of that is the banks then driving monitoring of bank accounts, overseen by the Financial Intelligence Center and overseen in turn by the South African Reserve Bank and National Treasury. And the point was to get everybody focused on monitoring their activities and the financial flows through non-profits, and especially from non-profits based in South Africa to other activities and non-profits outside of South Africa. So that's meant to be the primary focus of the FATF regulations, is cross-border financial flows, not so much in South Africa, but the reality is that in order to exit the grey list, South Africa has focused on what it can do inside South Africa. And so although the levels of risk in South Africa have been rated as medium to low, the effect has been that bank accounts in South Africa that are inactive for extended periods of time are being closed. And that can mean that NPOs not only lose access to financial services, but they are then also susceptible to being deregistered if they are registered, and many are not, by one of the regulatory authorities. And most NPOs are registered, if they are registered, with the Department of Social Development. And that can mean that they have to close down and they can't raise funds to continue their activities. And it costs them money then to open a new bank account and costs them time. As it is, NPOs struggle to raise funds because of the weak economy and the withdrawal of foreign funders. Also, the level of informality in our NPO sector. There's a wide range of NPOs. Some are very formalized, and they are sort of what are often called blue chip non-profits, which are think tanks, and they have foreign funders. They have foreign donors sitting on their boards, or they have access to foreign funds. But we have also a large number of unregistered voluntary associations that really just look after community affairs. Some of them are just sports clubs, but others are soup kitchens, for example, or they raise funds for school kids' shoes or clothing or blankets. So there's a wide range of NPOs, but they really are all being treated in the same way by regulatory authorities. They're all required to submit the same source of information, and they're all required to have bank accounts. But the problem is that banks are afraid of not complying with the new laws that have been introduced following the FATF recommendations, and so they de-risk their activities. And one way of de-risking is by closing down inactive bank accounts. And they are supposed to do this on notice. So after notifying the NPO that this is a problem, that there's not enough activity in their bank account. So for example, the rule of thumb is about 3 months. But of course, with NPOs, and many NPOs don't have the same contact people or the same cell phone numbers or the same email addresses, because they're staffed by volunteers who don't always have this constant contact details, regular, reliable contact details. And so bank accounts are being closed after just a short period of inactivity, whereas banks don't seem to understand the precarity and the informality of many NPOs. And so bank accounts are closed in order for banks to de-risk their own activities. And this then results in NPOs really falling off the only radar that our regulatory authorities have to track the activities and monitor the activities of many NPOs. And so those NPOs then can be used by dishonest actors who want to launder money or finance terror activities. And many of these NPOs don't have a great deal of financial literacy. So they don't know how to monitor their own financial activities. They don't know how to monitor their own bank accounts. And they don't know that many banks do offer zero-fee bank accounts. And so, but banks also don't know, they don't understand the activities of NPOs and the irregular nature of their funding. And so they don't offer these no-fee accounts to NPOs. And so there is this vicious circle, unfortunately. And this really just serves to heighten the country's overall risk rating among NPOs. And so if this issue is not addressed, there is a perception of greater risk, and there is a real risk that unregistered or unmonitored NPOs could be used by bad actors. And banks are not really applying the know your customer approach when it comes to NPOs, and they're not being targeted or proportionate or focused in implementing their risk management activities, which is what FATF recommends.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, Gary. We're completely out of time, but thank you for your insights.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Pleasure.
Thanks. Advocate Gary Pina, one of the authors of the Inyatelo study highlighting the unintended consequences of global financial regulations when it comes to South Africa's non-profit sector. We now enter the third and final hour of Rise and Shine. Good morning if you've just joined us. I'm Asanda Beda. Let's get our news at 8 o'clock Central African time. Here's Jolani Tulo Mwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. In a major development in peace talks in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the United Nations peacekeeping mission will send its first team to monitor a ceasefire between Congo's government and the M23 rebel group in the coming days. Qatar's foreign ministry made the announcement after hosting talks in Doha. The team will be deployed to Uvira, a strategic city in eastern Congo that M23 fighters captured in December during a rapid offensive. Congolese forces and allied militias, however, re-entered Uvira last month, restoring government control after the rebels announced they would withdraw. The United States is hosting separate talks between Congo and Rwanda. Morocco has evacuated more than 50,000 people, nearly half the population of the northwestern city of Qasr al-Kebir. Flooding driven by weeks of heavy rain threatened to inundate the city. Reports say the city has become a ghost town after most residents have either left voluntarily or have been evacuated. Authorities set up shelters and temporary camps and barred entry into the city as rising water levels in the Lucas River spread across several neighborhoods. Only departures from the city were permitted. Police in Nigeria say at least 80 congregants earlier believed to have been abducted by gunmen from 3 churches in northern parts of the country last month have returned home. However, the claim has been disputed by the Christian Association of Nigeria. Gunmen stormed the churches in Kaduna State on January 18th and seized 177 worshippers, disappearing with them into nearby forests, according to CAN. 11 people later escaped, leaving 166 missing. Researcher at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa, Professor Glenda Gray, together with her team, have announced a significant breakthrough in HIV research. The Brilliant 011 study, launched at the Desmond Tutu HIV Foundation site at Groote Schuur Hospital in Cape Town, has enrolled its first group of 20 HIV-negative volunteers in a groundbreaking vaccine trial. The study is a first in human clinical trial testing a novel HIV vaccine candidate designed specifically for strains prevalent in Africa.
So we're trying to do two things, but in both people living with HIV and people not living with HIV, we're trying to induce these broadly neutralizing antibodies that will contain and neutralize the virus. And so once we see that this vaccine works, so we want both prevention, that's very important for us, because we do need to stop the HIV acquisition. But at the same time, if we can contribute to a cure, it'll help us alleviate the long-term management of people who have to use ARVs for the rest of their lives.
A court in Bangladesh has sentenced the ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and 3 of her family members to varying prison terms in separate corruption cases. Hasina fled to India in August 2024 after a mass uprising. She was sentenced to death for crimes against humanity in November last year. The BBC's Azadeh Moshiri reports.
Since Hasina's Awami League government was overthrown in 2024, prosecutors have brought a series of cases against the former Prime Minister and her relatives. Today's verdict also handed down varying prison sentences for 3 of Hasina's family members, including Tulip Siddique, a British Member of Parliament. This latest case was once again tried in Hasina's absence. It centred on allegations she abused her power to secure state land for her relatives.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, international cricket's mother body, pressure, PCB, silence and secret negotiations. There'll be no Formula One in South Africa in 2027. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Africa.
.05 Central African Time. We now enter the third and final hour of Rise and Shine for this Tuesday. It is the 3rd of February and we're broadcasting from South Africa, live in Johannesburg. That's where our studios are as Channel Africa. From the African perspective, we'll continue to bring you news and current affairs. And in this hour, we'll be looking at South Africa's Department of Health, who are this week beginning their 2026 human papillomavirus or HPV vaccination drive. This to protect girls aged 9 years and older from developing cervical cancer later in life. Also, a new program is set to equip young changemakers across Africa with essential digital and tech skills. The Diana Award, in partnership with ServiceNow, will offer weeks of hands-on experience in AI, in ServiceNow fundamentals, and with support to gain industry-recognized certifications. We'll find out more about that program and how it works. Of course, those stories and more are coming up in this hour. You can connect with us on the SABC Plus app via mobile phones as Channel Africa, also on channelafrica.co.za, and we are live streaming on YouTube at Channel Africa 1 is our social media handle. My name is Asanda, Beda.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week. 6 decades of rhythm, resonance, and relevance. We are Channel Africa, the African perspective. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Department of Health will this week begin the 2026 human papillomavirus or HPV vaccination drive to protect girls aged 9 years and older from developing cervical cancer later in life. South Africa continues to record a high number of cases of cervical cancer and related deaths annually, despite the availability of life-saving vaccines available in public health facilities and the private health sector. Sisi Sekhalo has more on this story.
Cervical cancer continues to be a challenge for South Africa, with over 5,700 cases reported each year in the country, while more than 3,000 women die from cervical cancer-related complications. The human papilloma vaccinations are expected to prevent cervical cancer from early stages. According to the country's health department, the introduction of the HPV program in 2014 has so far benefited more than 3.6 million girls, mostly in public schools. The spokesperson for the health department, Foster Mohale, elaborates on the campaign.
The program has now been expanded to reach all girls in both public and private schools, including special independent schools, to ensure no one is left behind. This annual campaign will target mostly girls in grade 5, aged 9 years and older, to protect them from cervical cancer, which remains the second most common cancer among women in South Africa after breast cancer. The success of the campaign to protect girls from this preventable yet deadly disease hinges on stronger collaboration among all stakeholders, especially parents and caregivers.
The HPV vaccination campaign is implemented in partnership with the Department of Basic Education and other stakeholders, including the World Health Organization and United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. Mohale has appealed to parents to cooperate to make the campaign a success.
The Department of Health appeals to all parents, caregivers, and legal guardians to prioritize the health and future of their children by signing the consent forms issued by the schools in order to enable them to receive this life-saving and free vaccination. Trained teams of health workers, including nurses, will be visiting schools across the country to carry out the HPV vaccination campaign as part of integrated school health program.
Meanwhile, the director and external affairs lead at Roche Diagnostics Southern Africa, Neo Mulusi, explains why early detection is important.
Screening allows us to detect HPV infection or abnormal cervical cells before they develop into cancer. When caught early, treatment is simple and highly effective, and women have a much better health outcome. South Africa's approach to cervical cancer prevention and care is changing in a positive way, and national guidelines now recommend HPV DNA testing as the primary screening method instead of relying only on pap smears. We also have self-sampling options which allow women to collect their own sample privately and send it for testing, making screening more accessible and less intimidating.
Mulusi adds that there are still barriers that prevents women from accessing screening. This include lack of awareness, fear or discomfort with examinations, some cultural sensitivities, and limited access to healthcare services. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
South Africa's opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters or EFF's electoral reform proposals have been received with mixed reactions. The party has proposed a realignment of national, provincial and local elections to take place on the same day. In addition, the party wants all South Africans above the age of 18 years old to be automatically registered with the Independent Electoral Commission. It plans to table their electoral reforms to Parliament before the end of this month. Here's Zara Groenewald with more.
It's this electoral reform proposed
that the EFF plans to table before Parliament by the end of February. This is EFF leader Julius Malema.
As part of trying to make that a law, we are demanding that the IEC must support that law. The IEC must join in demanding that all South Africans who are above 18 must be automatically registered with the IEC as voters here in South Africa.
As well as harmonizing the general and local elections, Malema has suggested a rethink on by-elections.
So the DP is right. We need to fight this thing of permanent elections in South Africa. Elections are not every 2 years. In South Africa, elections are every Wednesday. Every Wednesday there is a by-election here in South Africa. And the by-election is expensive the same way, if not worse, than normal elections. Why should we have a by-election?
Some political parties have weighed in. The DA says the proposal is moot as the constitution requires that voters still be registered, while the official opposition has labelled the EFF's proposal as political posturing, citing that they will deal with the matter in Parliament. This is MKP National Spokesperson Nhlamulo Ndlela.
What's the point of having South African citizens being automatically registered into the IEC database for voting purposes when the laws of fairness and transparency are not going to be applied? So it's more than anything else, it's just a red herring.
Rise Mzansi chief organizer Makashule Ghana is of the view that the automatic registration of people above the age of 18 does not mean that they will vote.
What we should be doing as political parties is to encourage people to choose to participate in the electoral processes. Just because people are registered does not necessarily relate to people having a lot more propensity to go out and vote. There are many registered voters in South Africa that are not coming out to vote.
Sentiments echoed by an expert, Lukhona Mnguni, the acting executive director of Rivonia Circle.
Of course, we must be clear that automatic registration has nothing to do about compulsory voting. It's not to compel people that they must vote, so that's a very different question altogether. But automatic registration also doesn't mean that people can't deregister themselves from the voters' roll. And I think a number of South Africans might not know this, but you actually can, once, even if you're a registered voter, deregister yourself as a voter in the voters' roll. So I think automatic registration would be more about facilitating the ease for people to get onto the voters' roll.
On the synchronization of the elections, Mnguni says it may not be a good idea as it may limit citizens' participation.
I do think that the idea of only having one form of election is quite problematic for me, because a country needs to always be in some form of citizen participation in the democracy, for the democracy to be vibrant and to be robust, and for political debates to be ongoing and continuous in society. And I think, another point that was made by the leader of the EFF was around by-elections, that maybe there's no need for by-elections. If an ANC councillor resigns, it must be replaced by an ANC councillor.
I am Zara Groenewald in Johannesburg.
Still to come on Rise and Shine, we catch you up with what's happening in the world of sports from the African perspective, and we'll be getting our business news as well.
Call us on +27 63 406 9126.
I can see my whole world changing.
And contribute to the conversation. The voice of the continent, now online, with all your sports fixtures, lifestyle, and more.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Channel Africa is moving with the times, and so is our WhatsApp line. We've changed our WhatsApp number, making it even easier for you to stay connected. Send us your voice notes, comments, shout outs, and song requests to our new WhatsApp number, +27 83 288 6684. That's +27 83 288 6684. Save it, share it, and stay in the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
A new program is set to equip young changemakers across Africa with essential digital and tech skills. The Diana Award, in partnership with ServiceNow, will offer 10 weeks of hands-on experience in application development, AI, and ServiceNow fundamentals, with support to gain industry-recognized certifications. To tell us more, we joined live from the UK, or the United Kingdom, by Dr. Tesi Ojo, CBE, Chief Executive of the Diana Award. Dr. Ojo, thank you so much for making time to chat to us. Good morning.
Good morning, and such a joy to be with you this morning. Thank you. I thank you so much. I love how you've presented it. Isn't it exciting that we can bring this program equipping young people across Africa with digital skills?
It is exciting. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Ojo, tell us a bit about this program with ServiceNow and what inspired the Diana Award to launch it.
Thank you. So firstly, the Diana Award is the only charity across the world that continues the legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales. And our missions focus on ensuring that young people across the world, wherever they live, are seen, are heard, and have all the tools they need to thrive. And so for us, what does it mean for young people to thrive? I know that young people are often left behind. It doesn't matter what continent they live in. They might live in the UK, they might live in different continents. Sometimes youth. And our mission is about making sure that actually young people are at the center of development. Young people are at the center of rebuilding their communities, because we know they have the power to do that. And, you know, whilst the world is moving towards AI and digital, it's so easy that there will be the first adopters are adults, the first adopters are business people, and the first adopters, the people who are at the center of curating AI and everything else, are perhaps those who are at the center of it, who have the financial means and all of that. What we want is that how can we be recreating the world? How can we be thinking about innovation and yet leaving young people behind? How can we do that? Ultimately, young people are going to inherit the earth. You know, they will be here, especially if we're looking at young people who are 18 to 30. They will be here when most of us who are in our 50s, 60s, and 70s have left. So why not equip them with the tools and the skills to create a better system, right? So I mean, this is something we're incredibly passionate about, and I'm so excited that ServiceNow listened. We have been speaking to them last year. We know that ServiceNow are one of the top companies involved in AI and digital, and we know they are equipping lots of businesses with these tools. And so last year we approached them and said, listen, young people should be skilled up. But one of the things we were keen to do is to make sure that young people are not paying for this service. We are equipping them with the tools to rebuild society for good. So it should be a service that's offered to them free. And I'm so grateful to ServiceNow that they listened and they agreed. And it's exciting for me, obviously, as someone who is from the continent of Africa, that we are bringing this home for the first time. Like, this excites me hugely, that, you know, usually Africa, stuff that comes to Africa is almost a second thought. This is a first thought. We're bringing it first to Africa, and then in the summer, we're bringing it back to the UK.
And the countries Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa have been chosen as the first for this initiative. Why choose these three first?
So the reason we wanted to choose these three, we wanted to make sure that we were in areas of huge tech development. Ultimately, what we want is that the young people who go through this program are certified and can immediately have the opportunity to get jobs. We know that those are the tech hubs. Kenya is a big tech hub, Nigeria is a big tech hub, and South Africa is a big tech hub. So we wanted to make sure that, it's not just the equipping of the young people with the tools and the skills and having the certification, but that they will also be able to get a job straight after and they can begin to implement. And this is the first time we're doing this. Is a pilot. We want to see how that trial goes and before we expand it. But trust me, we are definitely going to expand beyond.
So participants will gain hands-on experience with ServiceNow, AI and app development. Take us through to what a typical week will look like.
So it's a 10-week program. What we want to do, so we want to combine skills that would improve humanity with digital. If we are thinking about a new world, the things that we see in the world today, we think about health inequity, we think about polarization, we think about all of the society, the issues we're dealing with globally across the world. We cannot depend on tech alone to fix it. We want to have a combination of what those humanity skills look like, what does empathy feels like. When you combine, we don't want to put AI just in the tools in the hands of someone who doesn't care. So alongside technical skills, participants will also be going through what we call social and emotional learning. We want to build empathy. We want to build the ability to care deeply. So it's about social good and understanding how when you have these tools, how can you use that for good? So they will be facing, over the 10 weeks, they will be facing both one-to-one sessions, they'll be facing group sessions. We will set them challenges centered around social good. Things like, okay, what have you seen in your community and what can you use? How do you think we can fix it? They will go through hackathons. All of the work they would do will be centered around building the right social skills, combining social skills with tech skills to create change for good. So we're not just building, you're not just building AI engineers, you're building AI engineers who will care deeply, who would understand. If you think about Princess Diana, one of the reasons across the world she was so loved was because of her ability to care, was because of how she demonstrated her care, how she demonstrated compassion, how she reached out to others beyond herself, how she used her privilege to create change. That's the kind of young people that we're trying to build, where we want them to have the right tools, but the right mindset as well.
That was my next question that you've just covered, but also it's 18 to 30-year-olds that you're looking for as applicants. And you mentioned then in terms of the kind of qualities and mindsets you're looking for in them.
Yeah, so it's 18 to 30. Like, we're not necessarily saying you have to have this mindset. We will support you over the 10 weeks to develop this mindset. We are just looking for young people who are age 18 to 20, who know that they have who will dedicate the time. There will be an eligibility criteria. Part of, at the minute, we're asking people to express interest. We will have lots of information evenings where we're going to be telling young people what we expect of them. We expect them to commit to this. Is a lot of investment. We know that we know how much it's costing to invest in this. So we're not looking for people who will treat this haphazardly. We want people who would say, look, I'm locked in, I'm ready to do this, because we are locked in ourselves and we're excited about the prospect of it.
Looking beyond the program, how are you hoping young people will gather these skills that they will have learned in those 10 weeks and implement in their communities and careers?
Well, we hope that firstly, the certification, part of what ServiceNow would do is also letting those digital companies across the tech companies across the regions know that this group of young people are now certified. So we hope that they will have, through the 10 weeks, we will help them update their CV. We will help them, support them as they begin to explore what their next step is. But we know that there'll be two platforms ready for them. Firstly, the ServiceNow recruitment platform will be ready for them because they will be certified engineers. But secondly, even if within their own networks, if they have people who might want to employ them. But more importantly, we know that young people, as they come through this program, beyond the digital skills, we hope that we will be producing, or as a result of the program, we will have young people who begin to see their community from a different lens. They will begin to see their communities perhaps they had seen it from a lens of helplessness, or, oh gosh, I don't know what to do. I hope is that as they come through the program, they will be empowered and they will see things from a different lens and see that they have the ability to make change happen.
All right, so young people who might think that tech is not for them, how would you encourage them to apply? And also, where do our young people go to apply?
So the application is on our website. If they go to dianaaward.org.uk, or they look us up on socials, they would find the application. At the minute, it's an expression of interest. So they need to express interest, and then they'll be signposted to the next step. Because they'll be signposted to the next step. I believe that tech is here to stay. I hope that no young person think that they're not a tech person. And if they're already using any form of tech, if they're on socials, if they have a smartphone, if they use any form of ChatGPT or AI, then tech is for them. I strongly believe that young people of this generation will probably not take themselves out of tech. They might not have seen themselves as tech engineers, but this is an opportunity to explore. I love young people of this generation. They are open to new adventures, and those are the kind of young people we're looking for. If you are passionate about something, you are a creative at heart, this is about giving you the tools and the skills to help up your game. And so I really invite them. But also there's a recognition that this is not for everyone, right? So you have to have a flair for it. You have to think, look, I'm a creative. I want to create. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to know more about AI. If that's you, then come along and apply. But also, if that's not you, that's okay. There's space for everyone. So we just really want people who are excited about the potential of creating change for good.
Right. Dr. Ojo, thank you so much again for your time and for all that you are doing there at the Diana Award.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a great day.
You too, thanks. Dr. Tesi Ojo, CBE, is Chief Executive of the Diana Award, joining us from the United Kingdom. So, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, stand up and take charge of your tech futures through that. It's 8:30 Central African time. Let's get our news headlines. Here's Jolani Tulo Ngwebe.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines. The junta that seized power in Guinea-Bissau in a coup in November has vowed to bring the revolutionary PAIGC party into government and has released its leader, former Prime Minister Domingos Simões Pereira, though he remains under house arrest. Police in Nigeria say at least 80 congregants, earlier believed to have been abducted by gunmen from 3 churches in the northern parts of the country last month, have returned home. And finally, emails released by the U.S. Justice Department suggest Britain's former ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson, leaked sensitive government tax plans to Jeffrey Epstein. The messages date back to more than a decade. I will have details on these and other stories at 9 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's catch you up with what's happening in the world of sports. Here's Fikile Lingwati with our update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We start off with the cricket news. International Cricket Council, ICC, pressure PCB for silence and secret negotiations. There's a small chance Pakistan may make a U-turn on the decision to boycott India match at T20 World Cup 2026. Pakistan's announcement of a boycott of the match against India on the 15th of February at the T20 World Cup 2026 may not be the last throw of the dice. With around 2 weeks to go for the high-octane India versus Pakistan match in Colombo, there's still hope that the situation can change. Providing hope is an interesting move from PCB, which has not yet formally written to the ICC about boycotting the India match. For the unversed, the declaration about the boycott came from the Pakistan government and not PCB. On to football news, former South African Football Association SAFA Chief Executive Dennis Mumble believes the country will be ready to step in and host a successful 2026 CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. If Morocco decides to pull out, like it's allegedly threatened to do, South Africa will have just over a month to prepare to host the 16-team biennial tournament. Deputy Minister of Sport Peace Mabe stated on Sunday that South Africa is the new host of the tournament. But Sports Minister Getty McKenzie was forced to release a statement later saying South Africa merely expressed its willingness to support CAF should alternative hosting arrangements become necessary.
Is it possible for us to host a tournament of the magnitude of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations with 60 days notice? Yes, I think it is possible for us to do so. We have proven in the past that we can step in at the last minute, as we've shown with the 1996 Africa Cup of Nations, and we've done it very successfully.
On to rugby news, the Blitzboks are en route to Perth in Australia for round of 4 of the HSBC Sevens Perth at the HBF Stadium on the 7th and 8th of February. The Blitzboks are poised to face Fiji, Spain and Argentina in Pool A. The South African Sevens team missed a real opportunity to get ahead in World Rugby Sevens series. Coach Philip Snyman wants his team to become more adept at reading the game and using possession.
It's very frustrating and a tough weekend out in Singapore. I think always knew it's going to be a difficult weekend for us. We wanted to give a couple of youngsters the opportunity, but within saying that, I don't think we were clinical enough. We didn't use any of our opportunities. One thing I think that stand out for me, if there's any positive, is the youngsters that got a tournament under the belt, that played against the Fiji, that played against New Zealand, that played against France, and also the effort and attitude. I think there was a lot of effort and attitude.
Lastly, South African Formula One racing fans will have to wait a little longer to experience the high-octane sport after the country underestimated the requirements of staging a Grand Prix. F1 fever in South Africa hit the headlines when Minister of Sport Getty McKenzie met with Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali at the Azerbaijan Formula One event in September 2024. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Right, and let's go back and give you a throwback or day in history. And in 1962, on this day, the late Nelson Mandela began his address on behalf of the African National Congress political party. This address was made to the Pan-African Freedom Movement for East and Central Africa, a conference that was held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And this marked a significant step in seeking international support for the anti-apartheid struggle, of course, that we know was the ANC in the forefront of. That day in history, back in 1962, on this February the 3rd.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Let's catch you up now with what's happening in the world of business. We say good morning to Tabiso Lehuko. He's got our update.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. A China-based multinational home appliances manufacturer, Haier, has officially entered the South African market. The company says that the move positions South Africa as its starting point for expansion into the rest of the African continent. The launch, which took place at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg, brought together government representatives, diplomats and business leaders to discuss investment, energy efficiency and industrial development. A senior president of the Haya Group, Jeffrey Lee,
Actually, South Africa has great potential, and because for the following reasons. And first of all, South Africa has a population of 60 million, and the average GDP per capita is around $6,000, which is also among the best in Africa continent.
Morocco's energy ministry says it has paused the tenders launched last month for an LNG terminal and related gas pipeline projects without giving details on the reasons for the suspension. The tender sought bids to build an LNG terminal in the Ndoro West Med port on the Mediterranean coast and a pipeline linking it to an existing pipeline that allows Morocco to import LNG through Spanish terminals and supply 2 power plants. It also covered a section that would connect the existing pipeline to industrial zones on the Atlantic coast in Mohammedia and Kenitra. Uganda says it plans to slash external budget support by 84% starting from the next financial year in July. The Finance Ministry announced late on Wednesday that funding, mainly in the form of loans and grants, is expected to drop sharply from more than $586 million to just $92.7 million. While no specific reasons were given for the reduction, the government says it is prioritizing strategies to boost domestic revenue mobilization. Economist John Kakungulu Walugembe says that the move is not realistic.
In my opinion, this is not realistic. If you look at the size of Uganda's budget now and the credit appetite, I don't think it's realistic.
A key investor group in Ethiopia's Seoul International Bond plans to take legal action after the country's bilateral creditors blocked an initial agreement with the government on how to restructure the debt. Ethiopia recently said it would reopen negotiations with investors on the terms of restructuring the $1 billion bond after the official creditors committee, chaired by China and France, said the draft deal did not meet the comparability of treatment principle under the G20 restructuring initiative. Under the G20's common framework aimed at streamlining the process for struggling states to overhaul their debt, comparability of treatment requires commercial creditors to take similar losses to their official counterparts. U.S. President Donald Trump says India has agreed to stop buying Russian oil as part of a long-awaited trade deal with the United States. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi confirmed only the reduction in tariffs. The BBC's Arunodaya Mukherjee has more details.
Both leaders were full of praise for each other on social media. President Trump calling Prime Minister Modi one of his greatest friends, saying the US will reduce tariffs from 25% to 18%, and claiming India would cut their tariffs to zero.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 394. In Botswana, it's at 12.33. Kenya, 128 shillings 651. In Zambia, 19 kwacha 66. BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5.25. 76 rubles 22. India, 91 rupees 22. China, 61.94. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 16 rand 11 cents. 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold, $4,758, while platinum, $2,136. The dollars per ounce Brent crude oil is at $65.80 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabisolo Hugo.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. 6 decades strong, Channel Africa continues to inspire Africa and the world. Proudly sharing
the African perspective.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's small businesses are heading into 2026 with a more favorable environment aiding their growth than the year before. Economic indicators point to an improved environment overall, with a lower interest rate environment and softer inflation, among other green shoots. However, business funders warn business owners not to rush blindly into expansion, but to prepare carefully. SABC News reporter Leah Buseto reports.
South Africa heads into 2026 on a better economic footing than in recent years. The macroeconomic indicators show modest growth prospects, which experts say should be positive for the country's small business sector.
It's been quite positive from some of the economic indicators, such as inflation, which has remained within more or less the inflation target. The rand has strengthened quite significantly over the last few days. Interest rates have come down. We take another decision today as to whether that comes down. Still divided views. GDP growth forecasts are positive, somewhere between 1.4 to 1.6% for 2026, which I think is a good step forward. And obviously, the removal from the grey list also opens up avenues for more foreign direct investment and just opens up the environment for more infrastructural development, which will impact SMEs quite substantially. Why? Because further down that supply chain, SME services, goods and services get used and so on. So I think it will be a better year for SMEs.
Vinesh Subramani, the interim managing executive of SME business at Absa Business Banking, notes the bank's small business growth index that shows that around 59% of small businesses anticipate moderate to strong growth over the next 12 months. Surveyed respondents see growth intentions are largely domestic, with 92% planning to expand locally and 72% nationally, while a smaller but notable share is looking outward, with 45% intending to export and 67% aiming to grow their online presence.
And what we can see is that on the back of these green shoots that we're talking about, from an economic perspective, SMEs are also feeling more confident now about the future. But they have gone from, a couple of years ago where they were quite conservative, now to a place of what we're calling cautious optimism. So they're optimistic, but they're still cautious about, what they're going to do going forward. But overall, we've seen that, the confidence has improved. What this tells us is that we can't take for granted that they're going to thrive. As institutions, as policymakers, as financial partners, we still have a role to play in supporting SMEs with this cautious, optimistic outlook that they have.
But with load shedding easing, the lenders warn that water is fast becoming the next big operational threat. Chief Risk Officer at Lula, Garth Rossiter, says any serious disruption has a massive knock-on effect onto business.
In terms of the water, that's a massive issue. Obviously, we've dealt with power problems, but you can live without power for a little while. It's going to impact your margins. Lack of water really could result in some serious disruption to communities in general. And I think that for me that has massive knock-on effects to the businesses. The inability to access water is a disaster. So it's something that really needs to be addressed. We've been through this cycle a number of times. I think it's just really important that we start planning for these events. We are in a water-scarce country. We go through wet periods and we forget about it. So I think we really need to start planning as a government and providing basic infrastructure, building more capacity over time.
Subramani agrees that this is an issue that keeps small business owners awake.
It is definitely one of the elements that keeps business owners awake. And so we are starting to see more and more small businesses starting to think about backup storage, in the best interest of the business and to make sure it's sustainable going forward, there has definitely been this shift from an infrastructure perspective from electricity to water.
The lenders say firms should use this breathing space to future-proof, not relax. To take advantage of this period, the experts recommend a few things that business owners can do to benefit. This includes sharpening funding plans and improving credit scores.
I think it's always a magnificent time to be looking at improving your credit rating. So a credit rating in simple terms isn't a no. It's not the difference between you getting funding or not getting funding. It determines the price you're paying. So it's a yes at what price. So if you want to pay lower prices or lower interest rates, you need to fix your credit. For businesses in particular, low margin businesses, an increase in 5 or 10% in the interest you pay has a massive impact on your bottom line. So it's always a good idea to keep an eye on your credit. And that means fixing where things have gone wrong. So settling outstanding amounts where you've been avoiding them. And especially in an environment where things are more benign now, economy is improving, you may have surplus cash because of the lower interest rates. Use the opportunity to repay debt, to settle your outstanding obligations. And then once you've done that, you've got a decent credit score and you can look to grow.
A well thought through plan, a sound demonstration of understanding the market and opportunities, and that your expansion makes sense for your business. It's well thought through. The substance is good. So all the assumptions that you're using in that expansion plan is well thought through. The indicators, key drivers in your business is clearly identified and indicated, and that it makes economic sense at the end of the day. So a well thought through plan backed by really passionate entrepreneurs who are willing to back the opportunities that lies ahead, and that they are tangible and not just pie in the sky opportunities. They are tangible, they are well identified, clearly identified, and that the investment expansion and opportunity makes sense. I think it's the right time to start thinking about expansion. Over the last period, SMEs were a bit more reserved. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market and so on. The only big cloud hanging over everyone's heads at the moment is the international tension between the USA and Europe.
2026 is poised to open up opportunities of recovery, acceleration, and growth for many small businesses. Experts say the real edge may lie in how they manage risk and structure funding, among other interventions. Diabo Seto, SABC News, Johannesburg.
So let's take you back a bit in history. In 1971, following a military coup on January 25th of that same year, Idi Amin of Uganda officially consolidated his authority in that country by suspending parts of the constitution and establishing military rule. This, of course, would begin one of the most repressive regimes in post-colonial Africa. That's back in 1971 on this day in history.
60 years of stories, sounds, and spirits. Channel Africa, the African perspective. The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect. As the sun rises on 2026, Channel Africa celebrates with you. This year, may prosperity flow like water. May unity strengthen our nations. And may every African story inspire the world.
Channel Afrique vous accompagne dans cette célébration. Que l'espoir illumine notre continent.
Que as vozes de África ecoem com orgulho.
From all of us at Channel Africa, we wish you and yours a joyful, successful, and prosperous 2026.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
All right, after Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, we have On the Move. That's a program hosted by Benjamin Mushatama and Palisa Tau. Joining us to tell us then what to expect on this Tuesday's edition is Benjamin. How are you?
I feel royal today.
Why?
Because I'm sitting in Peter's seat.
Okay. Where do you normally sit on your show, Gant?
I don't know. No, I'm with you, Pele. It's a bit of a different vibe. No, don't get it wrong. It's not about the seat. It's about being in the presence of
a queen.
Of a queen.
Thank you. I receive it. What do you want from me?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, I receive it.
Yeah, well, we've got a bit of things that are coming up, but I like highlighting one thing here on your show that stands out for me. We're going to be doing our Money Matters feature. I don't know about you, right? But how does your investment portfolio look like? Don't laugh.
You're telling jokes now on air.
No. Don't underestimate Asanda. She's a farmer. I'm sure you've got land seated somewhere. I'm sure you've got poultry. I'm sure you've got cows. So that's a portfolio.
Well, it's definitely not where I wish it was at this age and stage of my life. But yeah, I'm not happy with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to try to get some advice for our Money Matters feature. We're going to be speaking to a civil engineer who actually became an author and financial coach after turning their salary into a substantial investment portfolio with millions. These are our dreams, aren't they? We dream of such things. No?
Yeah, especially when you have children.
Yeah.
You want to leave that legacy for them. So investments are important, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the big question is, the older we get, do we give up hope? Do we stop trying to invest more? Because, sometimes they say investment is connected to time. And how does that work if you want to leave that investment for the next generation? So, yeah, we'll ask some of those questions.
Yeah, those questions that need to be asked. Yeah, that's quite a great informative one there. Thank you so much.
Cool.
60 years of broadcasting Africa to the world. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
The Student Representative Council, or SRC, at South Africa's Walter Sisulu University in the Eastern Cape province has refuted assertions by the institution's management that the institution is ready to commence the 2026 academic year. The student body says the institution has not concluded critical maintenance of some lecture halls and accommodation at its campuses, and that this will have a negative impact on the seamlessness of the academic year. The institution presented its State of Readiness report for this academic year to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee in the province. Let's hear more now on this story from Hlumisa Kabaka.
Walter Sisulu University currently has more than 27,000 registered students, with more than 23,000 being funded students. The institution claims study material is ready and curriculum and the approval by the Senate has already been done ahead of the commencement of academic activities. Although the university says it is prepared for the academic year, student representative Mvelo Abenta says issues of academic exclusion of some students, weakened security force in its institutions, and the poor state of student residence have not been resolved.
Whilst we are saying we are ready, if there are still maintenance issues that are being done by this time, they are a clear indication that the university did not prepare properly for this academic year, because the campus accommodation accommodates around about 3,500 students in TAD, for 1,500 to 800 in Parawet, and for almost 750 in Postem. If we are saying those students would be at least disturbed during this period of saying we are ready and we are commencing classes, that means then we are just subjecting the university to a lot of chaos.
The institution has received more than 557,000 applications for this academic year, but only managed to accept just above 7,000 first-year students. University Council attributed the hindrance to government's delay in approving the institution's online learning enrollment. Says that the system in place creates a problem in accommodating the influx of students.
Our own solution, and I accept it is a small solution in the grand scheme of things, is that if we cannot accommodate these students in the physical halls, we should at least be able to accommodate them in the virtual halls. But the problem is that DHED has not given the right to do so. We've asked them, and they have not given us the right to do so. We could potentially double the capacity of the children we have at WUSU. We have 30,000. We could be teaching 60,000 if we took some of them out of campus.
Parliament Portfolio Committee Chairperson Walter Litsai says there is a breakdown in communication between the institution and the Department of Higher Education and Training, a communication barrier that it will thoroughly investigate.
They have not seen the DG in a very long time themselves. Ourselves, we have even were forced to write to the President of the Republic to indicate that the DG does not want to account. He does not attend Portfolio Committee meetings since last year. He sent an apology today at 11:53, saying he won't come today because he has interviews. I mean, if you had interviews, you'll know before time.
Walter Sisulu, Vice Chancellor, who assumed the office late last year, Dr. Thandi Mgwebi, says the challenges expressed by students are not new to management and they are part of the long-term recovery plans of the institution. Khumisa Qabaka, SABC News, Komani.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Rise and Shine, waking up with us and allowing us to be your source of news and current affairs from the African perspective. Of course, programming continues on Channel Africa Radio. Do stay tuned for On the Move that's coming up. As the Rise and Shine team, we say goodbye for now. We'll be joining you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 6 in the morning. 6 till 9, we come to you live via our YouTube live streaming at Channel Africa 1 on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app. Also on the DSTV audio bouquet, channel 802. My name is Asanda Beda. Thank you and goodbye for now.